that is specifically relevant to the situation that we're in now with COVID. Okay, so enjoy, ask questions, please ask questions so that he knows you're there, all right? Or if he asks a question, make sure to answer. Remember, we can't see you. So if you're nodding your head saying yes, that doesn't tell us that you know what we're saying. Okay? All right. Have fun.
Real quick question, are they able to respond back to me if I go through and ask questions?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And in this mic system?
As long as you've got the green light there. Wait, did I unmute the mic? I probably didn't, did I? There we go. They didn't hear any of that. Oh, hopeless.
They didn't hear you?
No, because I had forgotten to unmute the mic. Did you hear any of that, guys?
No.
Was I just standing here?
Yes.
Okay. So Chief Malden's here. He's going to help us with our Friday activity. He also wants to share some information with you that's particularly relevant with the COVID situation right now, okay? He has questions for you as well. So please remember that shaking your head and nodding your head, we can't see that, we can't see you, we need you to talk, all right? So if you can answer his question, please turn your mic on, have your say, turn your mic back off again, okay? All right, we're gonna have fun. Here we go.
Right, I hope you guys are going to enjoy this weekend. As stated, I'm Brad Malden. I'm the Chief of Police for Eastern New Mexico University. My background is in law enforcement, but kind of the other half of what I do is professional development. Martial arts instructor. I have a black belt in Taekwondo, trained at the Gracie Academy in Torrance, California. My two primary instructors were Henry Gracie and also Brian T. City Ortega. If you ever watch the UFC or stay up with the UFC, you may know one or both of those individuals. We usually go through, when we cover a self-defense class, I think it's very important to understand that we cover physical techniques. The reality of self-defense is that about 90% of self-defense, and this is a metaphoric statistic, if you will, is about risk reduction, risk awareness, risk avoidance, and risk prevention. To put this into perspective, a great martial artist once said that somebody that's good at self-defense can defend themselves from any situation, but somebody that's truly great at self-defense would have never put themselves there to begin with. When we look at that 10%, why we leave that 10% for physical application, and this is why I have that methodology, is it's not fair to blame a victim for something that happened to them that they couldn't prevent. For example, my role is in law enforcement. I am trained to take account, to attention to detail, pay attention to my surroundings. I can tell you what vehicles that I go through and I pull up next to. Give me 1 second real quick. Apologize, it was rude of me, I didn't silence my cell phone. But I'm taught to go through and pay attention to my surroundings, but there's circumstances that even I could run into, say where I'm walking down a dark alley, I don't happen to see an individual hiding behind a dumpster, and as I pass by, I get jumped and I had no idea that they were there, and I'm forced to use those physical techniques. But that's really very, very rare. Most of the circumstances that I'm going to run into, there are clear patterns of predictable and preventable behavior, what I would call behavioral cues that I'm going to see on the side of either suspects or potential predators that are going to come up. And so that's what we're going to talk about. I would love more than anything to go through and cover physical techniques. There's a couple of reasons for it. I am very, very technical when it comes to self-defense and martial arts instruction, number one, and I want to make sure that I'm able to give you all the pieces of the puzzle if I teach physical techniques. The other side of this too is there are certain elements related to safety. When we're talking about leverage-based techniques, body mechanics, it's very, very easy to go through a hyperextended elbow, a knee. Improper throws can cause head injuries. And so there's a reason that we do those in a controlled environment, so I don't think we're going to do those today. But we'll talk about some of the issues, and I also want to talk about some of the issues that are really, really key to the circumstances that you're going through. So first of all, I'll just get right to the point. We are seeing an increase in domestic violence. We're also seeing an increase in what I would call inappropriate stress outlets that are causing some mental health issues. These mental health issues subsequently leading to increased suicide rate. What am I talking about in these inappropriate stress outlets? Increased alcohol use, increased drug use, or what we would call polydrug use, which is a combination of two drugs, prescription or alcohol. It's really a combination of any kind of substance. And we're seeing that increase in our population. Please, please, please make sure that you're taking care of yourselves. It's a key component to self-defense. We see a higher victimization rate related to individuals that engage in those types of risky behaviors to the extent that they can't maintain themselves, if you will. Please take care of your bodies. Please take care of yourselves. More importantly, please take care of your academics. You all have potential, and so do not waste that over poor decisions. I can't tell you the number of individuals that I see leave Eastern New Mexico University. That's the other side of my job that I don't really enjoy doing with our adjudication officer and vice president of student affairs. But I see a lot of students leave Eastern New Mexico University for poor decisions, and we want to make sure that you guys are successful. We're in the success business and not the failure business. But that's one of the issues that we're seeing. As it relates to domestic violence and self-defense, you are more likely to be victimized by a known than an unknown. When you go through and you see media portrayals, media often portrays a sensational and unrealistic view of the criminal world. You may see serial killers, you may see random acts of violence, and the reality is that's not the case. Most individuals' experience with criminal activity is going to be related to what we call opportunistic theft, where an individual left a door unlocked, say that their apartment complex or at their residence, and somebody found that unlocked door and there happened to be a computer in plain view, and they took that computer. As it relates to violent acts, it's not an unknown. It is usually a known that is associated with those attacks. This does tie into self-defense. It does tie into making important decisions. I can tell you that each and every one of you are valuable, that you're worth it, and so do not settle. We see individuals that get into relationships, and these relationships also have this predictable and preventable pattern. It starts off, and the significant other may have a level of jealousy, and they gradually pull that partner away from their friends, gradually pull them away from their family, and it leads to isolation. We see this usually verbal abuse, psychological abuse that gradually escalates to the extent that there is physical abuse, and they get wrapped up in this cycle of violence where we see this repetitive behavior. Please do not get involved in those relationships. If you identify that you're going through and you've got an individual that is controlling, that's starting to pull you away from your resources, your family, your friends, there are too many fish in the sea, especially in a collegiate environment, to have to deal with that. Get rid of them and find somebody else. If you recognize that somebody else is in one of those relationships, help them out. You've got to be cautious. It's a very, very interesting thing to deal with as a friend, because I've got to find a balance between giving them good advice without just driving them away from me, and I've got to be very, very cautious in the way that I approach it too. When we deal with control freaks, that's exactly what it's about. It's about control. And if I'm one of those friends and that individual identifies me as a threat to their relationship, trying to protect the other half, then I'm going to get pushed out just like those other friends and family are. So you've got to be cautious in the way that you address it, but the best thing that you can do is A, if it's you, get out of that relationship, or two, encourage your friend to get out of it and find out what the fundamental theme is. There's always a theme, and what I mean by theme is a fundamental reason that they're still in it. If it's psychological abuse, it can be a little bit different to deal with. Sometimes individuals will stay in those relationships because they believe they can't find anything better, that's their only means of support for themselves and their children. And if they get rid of this significant other that's abusive, then they don't know how they're going to be able to afford college or afford to pay for needs for their children. But those are some of the issues that we're seeing that gradually go through and escalate. Just be cautious. Other things that tie into self-defense that are very, very important are issues like social media. Social media is huge. Everything that is available to me is available to the criminal element. I always go through and it's comical. I guess it's better to laugh than cry, but I go through and I see the soccer moms that are driving down the roadway. Everything has a fundamental meaning and can be interpreted by a criminal element. So they have their Eastern decal on the back of this window. They've got a volleyball with the number 16 in the middle of it, and it says PHS. And then they go through and they've got the little stick figures of the dad and the mom, and then you've got the son and the daughter, and then the little tiny little dog. Criminal element goes through and gleans information from that. When we go through and we look at it, this individual is probably working from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, because those are the primary business hours of Eastern New Mexico University. I know that the daughter probably plays volleyball for the Portales High School, and during the time that they're going to have a game, probably the whole family is going to go watch, so they're going to be away during the time that they have this event. I know that there's probably 4 members inside of that household, and due to the size of the cute little dog that was about the size of a chihuahua, when I break into that house, I know that I don't have a whole lot to deal with. Please understand that there's a lot of information that goes out. Some of the things that you may not think are important raise big flags. Some of the other things that people will do is they have an entirely perfectly manicured yard, and then miraculously on the front porch they have this rock. It's not real hard to figure out where the key is going to be at those residences. The primary places that individuals hide those keys, if they leave keys outside, under ledgings, under overhangs, if you've got that weird looking rock in the middle of the garden that's not really a rock and it's plastic, everybody knows what those hiding keys are. So just be cautious about those things. Getting back to the issue of social media, be careful putting your name and date of birth on social media. With your name, your date of birth, I can go through and get you your social security number, your previous places of employment, usually just about any social media that you have, previous email addresses, Yahoo, Google, anything, and that information that I can go through data mining corporations and collect, the criminal element can also acquire by paying for it. A lot of individuals, when they sign their cell phone contracts or other contracts, or they even fill out accounts for social media, they didn't read the fine privacy print, which basically states in a lot of cases that they can sell your information to third parties, and part of that third party is data mining. To put this very, very short, data mining is a process of going through and pulling, extracting information to put information together to build a picture of what that individual is. Be very, very cautious in terms of how your social media is set up, who you invite to social media, and understand that that information can be used for, I guess to put it tactfully, nefarious activity. So just be cautious with your environment, with what you're doing on social media. Other things too, employers look at that. Yes, everybody has is outlined by the First Amendment, absent criminal activity, you can post a lot of stuff. You can go through and put that on your social media. However, it's not absent of social consequences. Yes, you can go through and you can post a picture in a state where, say, it's legal, of you going through and smoking, hitting a bong, smoking weed. Me, as an employer, I also have the ability not to hire that individual. So be very, very cautious. It's not just in terms of self-defense, but some of those things that have happened 5, 6, 10 years ago can have repercussions as it relates to employment and other social settings down the road. So just be very, very cautious with social media. Any questions about what I've covered so far from anyone? The only dumb question is the one that's not asked. Oh, you guys are a tough crowd. It's Friday. All right. So, as it relates to...
I have a question.
Sure.
So, suppose you're at a party, right? This is often where, a house party. Hope everyone can hear me. And this is often where crime, things like assault happen. What can sort of a person do to protect themselves, I guess, while still having fun? You know what I mean? I mean, that's how can you do it in a practical way?
Absolutely. We understand in a collegiate environment that your may engage in social activities, going to parties, going out. I personally, when I was in college, I didn't do any of that stuff. Okay, it never happened at all. And I'm absolutely lying to you right now. I had my fair share of fun. When you look at these environments, very, very important. It's changed so much. One of the best things that you can do is go with friends. Let me tell you how easy it is. If you can't go through and get a hold of ketamine or rohypnol, two of the most predominant, what would be referred to as date rape drugs. These chemical compounds are not that hard to get a hold of. To put this into perspective, absent those, in hitting up the street market to pick them up as a predator might, I can go to Walmart right now and buy everything that I need to completely put somebody under. And that's at the local Walmart. It's not that hard. You've got to be very, very cautious. If you choose to engage in those risky behaviors, understand that your inhibitions are going to go down. And it's important that you have individuals there that can take care of you. And I'm not condoning alcohol or substance abuse, but I also want to take a realistic view on what happens in a collegiate environment and in some of these gatherings. When it comes to your drinks, do not leave your drinks unattended. That's a huge no-no. Do not leave your drinks unattended. I don't take cups from anybody else that have gone through and poured it because I don't know what could have happened to it. When I go through and I tell you that I could procure everything from the local Walmart, making a couple of stops to go through and put somebody under, I also want to add the caveat in addition to it that I can go through and procure those items and do it in a way that they would have no idea that their drink had been tampered with. And it's going to have virtually the same effect. So just be cautious as you go through your collegiate experience, I guess. We're also talking about where individuals engage in more risky behaviors range about 16 to 22 years of age, which just happens to be the age range of most of our students that attend here at Eastern New Mexico University. We do have resources that are available. Using Safe Ride is a huge resource that we have. There is no reason why anybody that is attending school at Eastern New Mexico University should ever have any issues with being taken into protective custody or having to be arrested for DWI when you have resources available like Safe Ride that are provided by the university, and they're confidential. As long as individuals don't start drama with the safe ride drivers, don't start fights with the safe ride drivers, I'm never going to know who used those services, whether it was faculty, staff, or students, and it's prevention. It's not just about the DWIs. Even individuals that are acting responsibly and choose to walk can be victims. We've had two circumstances that have occurred. Just giving you examples, one individual decided to walk from a house party and was sexually assaulted before they ever made it to campus. Another individual that happened to make a good decision and wanted to go through and walk because they didn't want to drive, got into the intersection of University and South Avenue K right there at that three-way intersection on campus, and was struck by a van, another individual that was drinking and driving. So it's not just about DWI prevention. Services like that related to Safe Ride perform an important task because you can still be victimized while doing the right thing. And we want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. Like I said, we're in the success and not the failure business. Any other questions that you may have?
When is Safe Ride available?
I do not know what they're currently running. I think they've got it advertised on the website, and I know that Student Affairs has sent out a couple of emails, but don't get me lying today. So, any other questions that you guys can think about as it relates to self-defense or what I do? The only dumb question is the one that's not asked. If you want practical application where we go through and we actually get into techniques, I teach a self-defense class. It's actually 4 credit, HPE 115. It will be offered in the spring. We go through, we'll end up doing ground fighting, we'll do scenario-based training. Do not let your frame size or any physical limitations, we can accommodate anything. I've taught classes to individuals that have been blind. I've taught classes to individuals that have other accessibility needs, and so do not let that stop you from taking a self-defense course. And understand that self-defense courses, if you ever run into an instructor that says my way or the highway, take the highway. The more tools that you can put in your tool belt, as I like to say, the better off you're going to be. And you want to use these courses as prevention, not reaction. And what I mean by that is I won't say a lot of students, but every semester I have 1 or 2 students that are victims of domestic violence, of sexual assault, and the reason that they're taking that class is to protect themselves. The sad thing is, yes, and it's definitely important, but I wish that I could rewind time and had an opportunity to teach them some of these techniques, some of these early warning signs, some of these prevention techniques well before those circumstances took place, either inside of a collegiate environment or inside of a relationship. Another thing too, and it may be a piece of rhetoric, but it's something that I hold to, we minimize the impact of victims when we use terms like date rape and bullying, okay? I want to go through and I'll give you a scenario. I had an administrative official that's no longer with us, and I'll give you an example. We had a sexual assault, and I brief our administration every Monday morning on all the incidents that have happened, and these incidents, they never get names. I maintain confidentiality. I simply explain to them that we did have a sexual assault over the weekend. They don't get any specifics that are on it. And one of the administrators asked me, was this an actual rape, or was it like one of those date rapes? Well, one of the things that I want to bring up, and I'll give you a scenario to go through and put it into perspective. If you have an individual that they go out, okay, you have 2 individuals that go out, and 2 significant others, and they have dinner, they get done with dinner and they walk out to the parking lot and they get into a physical altercation, and one of the individuals shoots the other one, are they going to charge them with date murder, or are they just going to charge them with murder? What I mean by that is obviously they're going to charge them with murder. There is no crime of date murder is the same way that there is no crime of date rape. It is all sexual assault, it's all rape, and they will be charged the exact same way. In those types of terms, minimize victims. When we go through and we talk about the term of bullying, that's another one of those terms that often comes up. Well, law enforcement and others have a tendency to diminish it based upon the impact based upon the terminology. So a lot of times what will happen is they'll report that somebody's being bullied. Well, okay, we'll let the school handle that. That's really kind of their area of expertise. But when you get to the heart of the issue, it's usually not bullying. And here's what I mean by that. I'll ask an individual, look, my son is getting bullied. And that's what they'll tell me. And I'll say, well, tell me exactly what is happening to your son. Well, every day when he walks down the hall, somebody's punching him in the arm and they're pushing him up against the locker room. Well, I hate to break it to you, your son's not being bullied, he's being battered. And there's a statute for that. I can charge individuals for that behavior. Well, my daughter's being bullied. Well, what's happening? Tell me what's happening with your daughter. Well, every day that she goes to school, they make fun of her. They call her names. They follow her down the hall. Well, I hate to tell you, your daughter is not being bullied. She's being harassed, knowingly, intentionally pursuing a pattern of conduct with intent to intimidate, harass, or annoy. We have a crime for that. We can charge them for that. There is no statute for bullying. In the criminal justice realm, there is no such thing as bullying, but if you start getting them to describe what is actually happening, it usually involves some sort of criminal offense. So just out of respect for victims, yeah, maybe rhetoric, but one of the things that I would encourage you to do is really get away from using those terms and call it what it really is. Date rape is rape. When we go through and we look at issues like bullying, usually it's not really bullying. It's battery, it's phone harassment, it's harassment. If it leads to some sort of emotional distress, which most of the time it does, it could be stalking. And so that's, I think, just very, very important concept to understand. Do not let those concepts or anything else diminish your ability to want to report a crime. I have solved some major cases associated with what we call MOs or modus operandi, little tokens, if you will, that are associated with the criminal element off of photographs. I had an individual go through and call me today that somebody was profiling, or what they thought was described as casing their four-wheeler, and said, well, the individual was wearing a mask on my Brinks camera. I don't know if I should report it. I said, absolutely, you should report it. Absolutely. We do the same thing as investigators when we go through and we evaluate these cases, because I don't just need facial recognition. There are certain things that individuals may do that they just don't think. Even the best of criminals, serial killers, individuals that have thought out these things, they gradually get sloppy as they don't get caught. The best predictor of future behavior in the criminal justice system is past behavior. And so there's no reason to force an issue, because they're probably going to do it again. What I mean is they can go through and they can take certain features, whether it be, say, a specific hoodie that's got a stain on it. It could be a pair of shoes that have some sort of identifying feature. And as we put these cases, these videos together, we can start to build a profile on this criminal and help us identify him. And so when we actually get to the point where we catch them, or maybe they got sloppy and didn't wear a mask, instead of charging them with just one offense, we're able to charge them with 6 or 7 that are associated with these others that have a tie, if you will, or a nexus to that MO, that pattern of behavior that they had. So please, we encourage you to report it. And I've got to tell you, as a law enforcement officer, if it was important enough for you to report, it's important enough for me to go through and investigate. So, A, don't ever apologize for having to call me or anybody in my profession for coming to assist you, because you're already paying for those services. We're already compensated to do that. You don't owe us an apology for us doing our job. And so very, very important concepts. How are we doing on time?
We're good. I have, so I remember you giving some information about cues to pay attention to in your environment that might put you at risk. Can you give them that information? Because I think that was really useful.
Yes. So I can cover something. One of the things, we're talking about those behavioral cues, but before we get into behavioral cues, actually we can do a practical application activity. I've got an activity that we can do that will go through and help you out. So I'm going to move some of this back. And I'm going to grab my mask because I'm going to need a volunteer for this.
You want to volunteer?
My disclaimer too is, so our individuals in the classroom are spread out greater than 6 feet, and they're wearing masks while the presenter's not. All right, let me see what kind of view we have here.
And we are filming it so they can watch it on YouTube as well as we.
All right, so the gentleman in the back that's recording, what's your name, sir?
Ryan.
What do you do? You got a baseball shirt on? Do you play baseball for Easter?
I used to. I coach now.
Okay. Athlete? Okay. Come on up. So put your cell phone away, put everything away. What's your age, if you don't mind me asking? 23. Oh my gosh. Wow, I'm old. Okay. So I want to make sure that we can see an angle where you guys can go through and you can see both of us. Your first name again?
Ryan.
Brian. All right, we'll have you stand right here. So everything that I promise with my students, I'm never going to do anything that shocks you. I never put my hands on you without asking for permission, and I never hurt my students. It just makes it, you don't have students if you hurt them, okay? So as a martial arts instructor. Really, really easy activity. You've probably done this before. So what I'm going to have you do is you're going to hold your hands out about shoulder width wide. So I'll have you adjust if you can. You're going to stand about right here just like this, and I think we can, okay, face it this way, and I'm going to stand right about here. All right. So we're going to have our hands about shoulder width wide. I'm going to go through, my hand is going to drop, and you're going to clap your hands and catch it. Got it? All right, so simple drill. We'll do one practice round. You got it. Okay, so as soon as you see me move, you can go. All right, we'll try it again. Probably best to go out of the way. All right, we'll just, you can Let's try it one more time.
Oh, I love this drill, actually.
I'm trying to anticipate it. You ready? Okay. Shoulder width. What happens when people's hands start? So what we're going to do, we'll see if we can do this. Take one step back for me. Watch the chair. Same drill. Shoulder width wide. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure on my distance and I'm just going through your hands. Okay. Good to go? All right. So let's try to line it up, angle just a little bit. One step more back. Big step, big step, big step. Same drill. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm too old for this. Like I'm falling apart. I got arthritis. And how old are you again? 23, like a little less than half my age. All right, here we go. Wait, you're already cheating. You already ready?
I'm lying.
Good. Stay there, stay there, stay there.
Yeah.
All right, you guys are not getting off that easy. Elizabeth, can you hear me?
No. I think,
Are they able to talk back?
yeah,
Or
they have to
respond back?
turn their mic on. Try another one.
Oh, I've got one I'll pick on. Kevin, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, okay, we just heard it. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can. Kevin, I'm going to pick on somebody, and I just randomly selected you out of the list of names. Is this familiar? All right, so am I faster than him, Kevin?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay. Am I faster than him? So Brian is actually faster than me. In fact, he's a lot faster than I am, okay? In fact, when I was sloppy on the first round, he actually caught the tips of my fingers, which is the first time in forever that that's happened. So what's going on here? What is going on here? I can assure you that Brian is a lot faster than I am. So what's happening here?
Give it a go. What do you think? If Ryan couldn't
I'll give you a breather.
make that
So,
catch.
what do you think?
So he missed, and then he caught. What was happening when he caught?
When we go through and we evaluate it, this is a really, really great drill. So if we look at this distance, for the average individual, it's about 6 to 8 feet. You can have a seat, I appreciate it. Yep. We call this a point of zero reaction. This point of zero reaction, roughly 6 to 8 feet for the average individual. Why we call it the point of zero reaction is if an attack is initiated, it is going to be carried out. There is no difference between him going through and having his hands shoulder width wide, trying to catch my hands, is having his hands up here to protect his face and me throwing a punch, and him trying to close the distance or to block it. If a strike is initiated within that distance, that point of zero reaction, that strike is going to be carried out. And so very, very important when we look at what we call proxemics to a threat, or when we're dealing with threats in an environment, that if somebody is causing me concern or just making me edgy, just don't have a really good feel about this environment, I want to make sure that I'm outside of that point of zero reaction where I'm greater than a distance of about 6 to 8 feet. That way if they initiate an attack, I can react to it. When their process is one, they've already made a decision on what they want to do. The reason that this is about a shorter distance too is because he knows exactly what I'm going to do and not just throw a blind strike or a blind punch. Had we have gone through and done a drill where he didn't know what was coming, it would take more time. The reason why, the brain has got to go through 3 processes. It's got to recognize the threat, formulate a response decision, and carry out the action. Each one of those 3 processes takes time versus the one that I've already pre-established. And that's why action is always faster than reaction. Reality of it is, he's a lot faster than I am. It has nothing to do with speed. It all has to do with reaction time. When we distance equals time. Time and distance have a relationship between one another. The greater distance that you have away from the threat, the more time that you have to formulate a response decision and carry out an action to save your life. So whenever you're in a circumstance, an environment, whether it be a social gathering, you could be out in the parking lot of Walmart, wherever it may be, and you recognize something that you feel threatened by, Stay outside of that point of zero reaction, because if they initiate an attack, that attack will be carried out. One of the biggest frustrations that I had in training martial arts is blocking is a misnomer. Blocking is a fundamental myth of martial arts, where you have individuals that are face-to-face doing these different drills. Usually we'll see it with very, very traditional martial arts. Understand, there's a good reason for it in terms it does help with body mechanics as it relates to a factual perception of reaction time. That is not it. And so those are just to give you an idea. If you ever want to do a drill to find out where your point of zero reaction is, you can do the hand clap drill. Just make sure that the person clapping is clapping their hands as fast as they can go, and the person that's going through and running their hand through their hands is moving as fast as they can go as well, so you can get a more accurate representation. Once you get that distance, you can actually take about another step back. Is going to be more realistic of what's going on, because you know that they're going to move their hand. The reality of an attack is you don't know when that punch is coming, and so you want to give yourself more reaction time to go through and deal with whatever that threat may be.
Yeah, good. Because I think that idea of putting distance between yourself and something that you feel threatened by is a key safety. You know, I mean, that makes all the difference, right? If someone's hanging on your shoulder and you don't like, you know, it's making you uncomfortable, move away, right? Give yourself as much distance as you can so that you can react if you have to.
Absolutely. Understand your personal space. Don't be afraid to stand up for your personal space and keep everybody out of your bubble. If you're not comfortable with them, you don't know them, certain things that you can see that are related to this, you'll see different corralling tactics where you start to see a group start to surround. As soon as I've seen some of those fundamental movements where if I'm at a social gathering and I start to see corralling tactics where individuals are breaking out of the group and they're eyeballing me and they start to move, yeah, I'm going to get out of there. Other things too to be careful of. If you go to a social gathering and you have an individual that you absolutely do not know, that you've gone through and you've met recently at that social gathering, and they're trying to fill you up, they're trying to stuff you full of drinks, there's usually a reason why they're trying to do that. Please stay away from those individuals. Community troughs, we don't see those as much in today's parties as they were. Back in the day, you would have what we would call community troughs, and you'll see them come up every once in a while. It's just not usually at every single social gathering that you run into like it was way back in the day. But what I'm talking about is like a 55-gallon drum of nothing but like some sort of Kool-Aid or wine punch and Everclear. Sometimes they would put it in bathtubs. Sometimes they would mix that stuff inside of ice chests. Stay away from community troughs. You never know what they're going through and they're putting in there. You never know how they're going through and mixing it or what they're mixing it with, especially if you're female. And one of the incidents that I had as a freshman, I went to an organization's house and they had one of these community troughs, and I'll be as honest as I can with you. I'm going through to get a glass, and they stop me and tell me, hey, you don't want to do that. Like, I don't think you understand, that's for the chicks. Why would they tell me that? I threw my stuff away, I loaded up, hadn't been there very long, and I was out of that place. Didn't want to have anything to do with it. So pay attention to your environment. If you go through and you see a population base at a party, especially if it's facilitated by those individuals, and they've made some sort of community trough, and they're not even touching it themselves, one, you don't want to take a drink that you hadn't poured or you opened yourself, and then number two, there's a reason that that that's taking place? Why would you have somebody that says that? What is their overall overarching intent? But those things happen, and it still happens today, and it results in victimization. The other thing that I would tell you, I've had the joyous privilege, if you want to call that, of babysitting individuals that are intoxicated, and it just, I'm not going to lie to you, it sucks. It's not a fun experience. It's just not a fun place to be. If I have to do that to keep them from getting hurt, then so be it. Please, please, please do not leave them. Do not get frustrated with them and say, forget it, or I'm going to leave you there. We see a lot of victimization that comes up, and usually it's a very story that follows along these lines, okay? You have 3 individuals, sometimes female, that decide that they're going to go out to a party. An individual has a Long Island iced tea or some sort of drink, and after 30 minutes goes through and decides that they found the love of their life. And it comes to the end of the night after they've had more drinks on top of that, their friends are ready to leave, they're dead set on staying, and instead of just dragging them out and taking them with them, they leave them at this party unattended. Those kind of circumstances are circumstances where I usually get phone calls at 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier, saying, Chief, we've got an issue. And I don't want to see anybody involved in that. So if you go out with a friend, take care of your friends. If you make a pact that you're going to go together, you're going to leave together, then you abide by those rules. Honor that friendship, no matter how frustrating it gets, so you don't leave somebody in an environment where they don't know anybody or where they're going to end up ultimately being victimized because we got frustrated that they didn't want to leave. So just very important. Take care of your friends. Make sure that everybody's safe in the end. Any other questions?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
All right. Well, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I appreciate you letting me have the opportunity to come into class and visit with you, and turn it back over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, really think through some of what Chief said. I'm sorry that we couldn't do, a hands-on experience this week, but I think Chief Malden doesn't want to do that without you being in a room, and that's sensible because you could hurt each other, and we can't see what you're doing. So hopefully some of this information can soak in and you'll be able to keep yourself safe. Keep thinking about that idea of your peripheral vision. Really pay attention to the cues that are going on, right? You don't have to have someone in your space that you're not comfortable with, all right? Ask them to move or move away for yourself, okay? And then if they follow you and you've asked them to stay away, now we're looking at, harassment and you need to find someone you trust to help you out or get out of there, okay? All right, any questions? Not today? Remember, we'll be starting a new chapter on Monday. And have a great weekend. Okay? I'll see you Monday morning. Bye.